Wolverine is one of the most popular Marvel characters out there, and honestly, might be one of them that has the most film appearances of any character besides maybe Spider-Man or Iron Man, which might be future episodes. Wolverine, though, is one of my personal favorite Marvel characters, and X-Men is one of my favorite franchises from Marvel. But there's one movie that almost everyone wants to forget.
We don't talk about Bruno, no.
Back in 2009, when we heard about Wolverine finally getting his first solo movie, I remember people being excited about it until it was released. But of course, this was prime tie-in times, so we got a full game release with the film that started to get some buzz too because of its M rating for the Uncaged edition. So let's sit down and compare the film to the game in this week's Screen to Console. I haven't watched X-Men Origins Wolverine since theaters, and outside of this,
Brother, what's that?
I don't remember much about it. The film opens on Victor and James as young boys when Victor's father returns home drunk and kills James's father. This launches a rage in James that unleashed his claws, killing the man in a fit of rage when we learn that this man was actually his real father.
Oh, is that who that was?
James and Victor take off running from the mob that was clearly on standby, and we cut into the opening credits that is a montage of the Brothers of Destruction throughout countless wars through history. This showing the division in the brothers as Victor kind of turns evil and bloodlusty, while Stryker shows up offering to put them on a team, and we get the best version of Deadpool ever to be created. It's hard to believe this is even Deadpool. Like, did they even look at anything Deadpool related before this? Well, after a pretty shady operation, Jimmy, also known as Hugh Jackman or Logan, leaves the group to start a life of his own in the Canadian wilderness, living with Kayla Silverfox. We cut to a carnival in Springfield, Ohio, where the electric dork is working when Victor shows up and takes him out. You could say, lights out. Then we get the best jump scare ever.
So the first night is never usually that bad in any of the games, so I'll play through.
One day at the labor yard, Stryker shows up. I love how just like goofy the action's handled in this film. It's so over the top and contradictory to like real serious tone it's trying to go for. But Stryker tells Logan, aka Jimmy, aka Wolverine, aka
Jackhawk 9000. Available at Walmart.
That the 9-volt battery is actually dead. I love how super serious the music is trying to be during a really cheesy scene where two dudes are having like an alpha male standoff.
Your boyfriend's got a big mouth.
Big temper too.
This movie's just like really completely blown out by the movie Logan. Like everything this film is trying to do, it just conveys so poorly, and Logan takes a similar approach and just nails it. Well, Victor confronts Kayla and like, is this supposed to be heartbreaking? I had no like emotional attachment to the character at all. She was literally here just to give Wolverine his name. Well, Logan hunts down Victor to a bar where Logan wants revenge, but that doesn't exactly go very well for him. Stryker convinces Logan to get the Adamantium Battle Pass to take Victor down, not only getting his metal claws, but also getting his new name, Wolverine. When Wolverine overhears Stryker's plans to erase his memory and to use his DNA for the next experiment, Logan goes full on beast mode and escapes into this old couple's barn. Yo, what the are these claw effects? They look like straight out of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where the cartoon is just blended in with real life. This movie had a $150 million budget, okay? Well, the next morning, the old couple ends up getting sniped from across the map, adding to that age-old tale of never helped a naked man in your barn. There's actually some kind of cool camera angles and moments in the action, but most of the action's handled pretty poorly with bad CG or fast cuts, but there are some glimpses of like some cool ideas here and there. Logan, though, takes down the plane with Zero in it.
You wanted the animal, Colonel. You got it.
God, that just feels like one of those like alpha male TikToks.
You tried to kill me. After I kill Victor, I'm coming for you. You wanted the animal, Colonel. You got it.
Cool guys don't look at explosions.
Logan meets up with Will.i.am and Fred Dukes. Why does Austin Powers have a better fat suit than this movie? Like seriously, $150 million. We cut to Victor bullying a kid who ends up being Cyclops, and Logan learns Victor is still besties with Stryker. Logan finds the anime main character Gambit when Victor takes on Will.i.am, or better said, takes him out.
My power is maximal.
Gambit runs interference for Victor, and we get maybe the goofiest thing I've ever seen. Logan starts to chop up the fire escape Gambit is climbing on, and it's played so seriously, but it looks so cartoonish, like straight out of Looney Tunes. Also, like, why did Gambit run interference for Victor? That makes no sense to me. Like, I get it. Gambit doesn't want to go back to Stryker's Island, but like, I don't feel like it's ever really explained or like really presents any kind of information that would make Gambit think Logan's dragging him back there. Because Logan's basically like, hey man, I need to find this island.
Those are mighty nice tags you have on there, sir. The men who took me wore tags just like them.
Well, Gambit ends up taking Logan to Stryker's anyway, where we see that Kayla is actually alive and a part of Stryker's evil plan. Victor and Wolverine go at it again, where Wolverine takes out Victor this time. Wolverine helps Kayla find her sister and release all the other mutants that the island was hoarding. And then we get Deadpool. This is the dumbest thing I have ever seen. This is so stupid on so many levels. This is Deadpool fans' Vietnam. Logan and Deadpool fight on top of the smokestack because it's cool, I guess, while Victor decides to help out Logan and take out the dirt pool. This fight scene is super short and very boring with no tension or any hard-hitting moments. It's just a fart in the wind, much like most of the action in this movie. Everything in this last bit here looks so unbelievably fake. What did they do to you, Sir Patrick Stewart? He looks awful. Anyway, Professor X picks up the kids because, you know, we need that cameo. Well, before Kayla ends up dying, she does save Wolverine by grabbing hold of Stryker and using her mind control powers or powers of persuasion to make Stryker just go walking off into oblivion, I guess. Anyway, Wolverine comes to without having any of his memories after getting Kurt Cobained, and man, this ending feels so dragged out beyond belief. But then the film just ends with Wolverine running away as the cops are surrounding the island, and he has no memory of who he is or what happened, and boom, credits. There's also a little tag ending with Stryker getting arrested, but what a waste of a movie. It's just running with the dude. This dude's f***ing awesome. Oh god. Oh god, the frames. The frames. Where did the frames go? X-Men Origins Wolverine was released in 2009 on pretty much every console, but we will be tackling this on the PS3. I'm sure the Wii version would have been hilarious with the motion controls. This game is basically a hack and slash God of War style clone developed by Raven Software on the PS3, 360, and Windows. I love when other companies handle the different consoles because you basically just get completely different games, but we're here to talk about the real version of the game, the Mac Daddy PS3 release, the Uncaged edition, brother. Now, this was a game I always wanted, but for whatever reason, I just never picked up until here recently, and I guess you can't download this game anymore from like any digital stores, so as always, physical over all else. The game opens with a pretty sweet looking cutscene in the not so far future with bodies laying around as Wolverine gives a voiceover. Instantly, you know you're in for a much darker and grittier tone, as this is way more graphic than the PG-13 movie. After some brutality, we cut back into time to Africa, where the copter we're in with Victor and the Black-Eyed Pea goes soaring down to Earth with the opening titles. We are immediately surrounded by enemies, and the game just lets you go ham on tearing them up, slicing apart and dismembering anything in your way with your claws. If you've ever played a hack and slash, then this will translate instantly. You have a light attack with square, heavy attack with triangle, a block, dodge, power combos, and so on. But what this game does so amazingly is that it always felt satisfying to do the lunge attack. You lock onto an enemy and press L1 to lunge at the enemy, and you can pretty much quickly chain these together and just basically frantically bounce from enemy to enemy, cutting them into pieces, and it always felt great to do. It makes the action so fluid and fast despite you not having a run button. This first level is pretty much just trying to find the crash copter in your team, while the game gives you a rundown on how the game works, but unlike most tutorials, the game never breaks up the pacing to explain anything, but constantly throws meat into the grinder for you to work it out in action, plus using very stylized moments to make it feel really epic.
Now, this is epic.
Wolverine does have a health bar, but you have your regenerative powers, so there's no health to collect in the game. He also has a rage meter that builds when you collect red orbs from slain enemies. This meter allows you to use your power moves. Wolverine also has a feral vision. You can toggle this vision with the D-pad that will highlight collectibles, ledges to jump on, interactive environments, and lead you to the right way in the level, which for the most part, most levels are really linear. As you play through the game, you will level up to unlock skill points that you can spend on your skill tree. You can also find in-game mutagens, which you can equip that will give you a specific perk. You can also collect dog tags and Wolverine statues throughout the level. Dog tags basically just give you XP. If you collect 2 Wolverine statues per level, you unlock a bonus challenge, and these bonus challenge you pretty much just fight another Wolverine, and if you win, you unlock that specific costume that you can use in story mode. Enemies come in different varieties that force you to approach them in a certain way, but a lot of the variety is basically just different flavors of water. When you find the crashed copter, your team is missing, but you get an earpiece where Stryker tells you where Victor is. The first boss I came across was this rock monster dude, and I quickly learned you can just dodge their attack and jump on their back to spam the attack until they die, and it becomes very easy very quickly. I love this boat scene as you just pounce from boat to boat, mauling everybody along the way, but this turret section, yikes, it handles horribly. When you finally find Victor, he gets the most brutal introduction, and I love just how hard this game goes. Like, this is what everybody wanted the movie to be. This is exactly what everybody wanted the movie to be. We cut to 3 years later as you're with Kayla Silverfox, who's telling him the Wolverine story from the movie, when we get a whiff of Victor at the bar, and we are thrust into a boss fight with Victor, and honestly, this was super easy. You have to beat him 3 times, and it's just super easy to overwhelm the AI with combos. Well, Sabretooth takes out Wolverine and breaks his claws, even though we beat him in game. When he comes to, he sees Kayla dead and finds Stryker. Stryker convinces him to take on the Adamantium challenge, and these cutscenes just look so good for the time. I love the CGI rendered cutscenes in this game. Well, of course, Wolverine can hear Stryker's plan to double cross him, which launches us into a boxer brief murder spree, and thankfully this isn't full tilt dingle dangle mode. You know, we're just goofing, new claw goofing. We pretty much just need to escape the lab, and we run into a Freakazoid boss monster that you take out the exact same way as the rock monsters, but we learn there's actually a poison in our body, and we need this scientist to remove it. The poison takes away our ability to regenerate and our feral senses, to which, you know, I instantly blew myself up, almost taking out all of my health. I was worried the game was going to put us into a stealth section, but instead the game puts you into some basic puzzle solving and platforming to kind of give you a break from the action that honestly might as well just have been as boring as a stealth section. Well, we get to find the scientist who gives us our regenerative powers back, but our feral senses are still gone. However, this allows us to go full open again as we slice through hordes and hordes of goobers. I hate this new invisible goober. Like, they're just kind of annoying to fight, but they're not really that bad either. They're just kind of obnoxious. When the scientist gives you back your feral powers, she tells you of a mutant girl that is scheduled for termination that needs our help, so our new goal is to rescue her. Well, chop 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 when we get to Anna, who has teleportation powers, and we help her escape when Stryker floods the tunnel, and that pretty much sets forth a scene that is pretty much identical to the boat scene from earlier, but now with trucks. And you know what? It's still pretty awesome. We come out flying, washing up to the side when we cut back to Africa, trying to find Eon emitters to destroy them. Also, I do want to mention that if you're seeing a lot of screen tearing, that is my recording software and not the game. Sure, we had some major frame rate droppings, but somehow my recording settings just kind of got screwed up and I caught them too late, so hopefully that's fixed from here on out. Once Logan gets to the transmitter after doing some platforming and slashing, we blow it up, launching Wolverine into a rock, knocking him out, and bouncing us back to the Winter Wonderland, escaping the facility. When after doing the legwork of this level, which is all starting to boil together as small puzzles, platforming, and slashing, we run into Nord, also known as Zero, which I'm not sure if they ever call him Nord in the movie. I only remember Zero, so I was a little confused at first when he shows up as Nord here. Well, he's got a sniper on you, and you play this section with the camera being the sniper scope, and it's pretty wonky, but you do kind of get your bearings as you try to escape being blasted by him while taking out enemies. Once you get past this section and more of the usual, you get to this top level where Nord is in a copter shooting these mutants that attack you. I missed it, but apparently if you let Nord activate all 4 mutants before killing them, you'll get a trophy, but I didn't do that. I took them out one by one. You take out these big guys, which are really easy, and pounce onto the copters, taking them out one by one until you get to Nord and take him and his copter out. The way you control Wolverine during these moments is just kind of wonky. Like, it just feels kind of wonky when it comes to dodging the hits, and if you get hit, you go flying back and have to kind of work your way back up.
Do me a favor. Take a message to your boss. You wanted the animal, Colonel. Oh, you got it.
Logan goes to find Wraith or Will.i.am. I do like green eggs and ham. We bounce back to Africa, and this game just likes to time jump more than a Nolan movie, honestly. Here we're introduced to a new enemy, the Shifter, also known as the Blue Blur, and they're pretty easy to take out. I hate the booby traps in Africa, man. I'm telling you, they just get me all the time. When we get a second, we see that another transmitter's been taken out by one of our teammates, and hear that Raven, who is on our team, has turned rogue, and no, not that one. Then we cut to the southeast United States as we climb into a factory to find Wraith. Here we're introduced to some new droid enemies as we tear our way through the level. I love how we just destroy literally everything in our path. This level was definitely a pretty long one as you spend a lot of time working on puzzles, back traveling to find Wraith. Along the way to finding him, you run into Raven, which is Mystique, as when you start talking to her, sends you back to Africa, which after taking a quick jog down memory lane, we jump back to the factory. Mystique tells you that if you find Wraith, she will tell us everything we need to know. I know I'm skipping over a lot of the game, but honestly, most of the game is just tearing through some meat bags with some small puzzling or platforming. The actual meat and taters of the story is pretty small, and a lot of what you do in the levels is just to get to the next cutscene. Most of the game doesn't really add to the story outside of those cutscenes. It's just objectives to get you to the story part, which isn't bad because the gameplay is really fun, but it is a lot of the same thing. So after a bit of the usual, we cut back to Africa with Raven holding a gun to us and Stryker going mad in the comms. Logan won't take Raven out, and Wraith comes out of nowhere and tells Stryker he took her out. Stryker believes this and sends Logan back to take out the last transmitter. You take out the last transmitter just like the first one, and bam, we're back to the facility when we find out that the facility is actually building Sentinels. These are the giant robot mutant hunters, and the head of one is awake and trying to take us out. Unfortunately for us, that head is also blocking us from getting to Wraith's door. We find a working but disembodied hand of the Sentinel, and we can use its laser beam to destroy the head. We can also use it to turn the grunts into meat chunks. Once you destroy the head, you can get into Wraith's door with Raven and set him free. Mystique and Wraith kind of have a thing going on.
You be careful, Miss Darkholme. That's my son you're carrying in there.
Well, Wraith tells us that Creed and Stryker have been rounding up mutants and that Dukes knows where to find them. Trying to leave this facility, though, is a bit of a different story. The Sentinel comes to life and launches us into one of the worst boss fights I've played in a long time. Basically, you just have to keep attacking its feet over and over and over and over and over and over and over. It's a super long and super boring drug out boss fight. The Sentinel will pick you up at times and you need to spam the attack button to blow its arms up, but after what felt like an eternity, we launch into the next part of the fight where the Sentinel launches off into the air. We take out its thrusters, sending it crashing to Earth, but we need to skydive back onto it to kill it for good. This was so annoying as you need to avoid flying debris coming off the Sentinel, which is nearly impossible to judge which direction the debris is going, especially once you get a couple hits in and the thing starts smoking more than a menthol meemaw. Once you finally get to it, because you know, if you get hit by a piece of debris, it sends you back up and you have to climb your way back toward it. You finally attack the chest piece, which you have to spam the circle button as fast as possible to actually get the death blow. About time. Jesus. I was like, watch the game freeze and make me redo that bullshit again. Somehow we go from the worst boss fight in the game to easily the best as you bounce straight into a boss fight against Blob, aka Dukes. This fight was awesome. You jump onto his back and ride him around the store, smashing everything. The entire level is destructible and it's just so much fun. Apparently, if you destroy the entire supermarket, you'll get a trophy. I didn't do that, but that's cool. After getting the world blob riding time, Dukes tells you about the island where Stryker and Creed are experimenting on mutants. He doesn't know where the island is, but tells us that Gambit had escaped from there and he can tell us where it is. I'm sure Gambit will be willing to talk to us and help us out.
Mighty nice dog tags you got on.
What?
Look a lot like the ones the men who took me wore. 2 years I rotted in that hellhole. I ain't going back.
But he goes all aggro and holy crap did they make Gambit hard to fight against. God. Okay, Gambit, Jesus Christ. You really need to use the deflect ability here to launch his cards back at him so you can take your shots in at him. Once you get his health down low enough, he kind of just takes off, and the rest of the level is pretty much you chasing after him, platforming and taking out goons along the way. Gambit has these assassin mutants that in terms of common enemy variety is probably the hardest to actually take out, but even then they're really not that bad. You catch up with Gambit and you have this pretty epic showdown on top of a neon sign where you need to deflect his cards to take your shots, but Gambit will destroy the letters of the neon sign, which honestly made the fight scene feel really hectic and kind of nerve-wracking, as it's very easy to fall off and start over again. Once you beat Gambit, we get a cutscene where you save Gambit from falling to his death, and you finally get to explain yourself, and he actually listens this time and agrees to take you to the island when you jump back to Africa. Churn through bodies and some puzzles, and you'll finally see what happened in Africa that transpired basically the entire game and story. Your team moves in on a village. Logan tells Victor to take it easy. You know, he's really a great listener. After taking the village hostage to find out the origins of the meteorite, Stryker threatens to kill the civilians if he doesn't tell him where it came from. Logan's finally had enough and sets the person free when he is gunned down. The unit turns on Logan, knocking him out, and we cut to the island. There's a really small section to tear people up until you find Stryker, when suddenly Kayla comes out. I definitely didn't see that coming.
What a twist!
You learn that everything was a setup to get your DNA for the Deadpool, and no, not that one. You, for some reason, decide to erase your memory when Victor slaps Kayla into the Shadow Realm for her asking to set her sister free. This sends us into a rage breaking out of the memory eraser.
Where's the 5 fingers? Say to the face! Slap!
Leading into a fight against Victor Creed that was a super easy boss fight, and after giving him some brotherly love, we spare him despite constantly wanting to rip his head off. Kayla tells Wolverine that her sister is locked up on the island when the Deadpool shows up. Kayla goes off to save her sister, and you take on the Merc without a mouth. This fight scene isn't really too much of anything, honestly. Discount Baraka. But I did notice in this fight scene that if you hit a parry, just how much damage that actually does. This first section is a pretty basic fight until he transports you on top of the smokestack lightning in the second phase, and with a little bit of our shirt left on our backs, we can pretty much beat the snot out of the Deadpool, because all he does in this second section is a laser beam shot transport by you, almost always misses connection, and then just kind of stands there as you can tear into him. Rinse and repeat until you get to the third section where he starts to destroy some of the smokestack, but just tear into him and eventually you take him out for good. Escaping the tower collapsing, Victor confronts you again, and you agree to go your separate ways. You find Kayla on the ground when Stryker blasts her and you. Kayla grabs Stryker's foot, turning the gun on himself, but instead tells him to walk south until his feet bleeds. It's missing the whole line from the movie, which kind of made the scene in the movie work, where here, there's like just less sense to be made. With Wolverine unconscious, she tells him that she always loved him and walks out into the water. Waking up with no memory, we cut to black until we get a tagged ending that's from the beginning of the game, where we learn the world is in chaos as Sentinels destroy the land, opening us up for a sequel that unfortunately we never got. Holy this game was so much better than the film, like way better. God. So the movie feels like a rushed mess without any punch, trying to be super serious, but it's so corny and cheesy. It's a complete conflict of tone. The film also veers off into a subplot with Cyclops that really feels like a waste of time. The game just cuts that out altogether. The movie bounces from scene to scene, trying to fit a ton into the runtime without really giving much time for anything to develop, and it becomes a slog to sit through. The game, however, gives you what you want: gore, blood, destruction. The story of the game can probably be completely written on one piece of paper, as it follows basically the same storyline, but adding in some things that feels like it kind of helps build the story rather than kind of take away the focus from the story, like adding Raven to be with Wraith and the Sentinels to not only be a cameo but also a great setup for a sequel. The way the game bounces around from section to section so quickly does give you a bit of a narrative whiplash, but it does help drag the story out further than it probably could have went, and honestly, it kept the gameplay moving pretty nicely. Despite being really balanced, bouncy too. It's pretty easy to follow and never feels like it loses its place. I do feel like the story relies a bit of you seeing the film, as certain segments feel either rushed or underdeveloped, but if you played the game without ever seeing the movie, I think you'll still be okay. The gameplay though just gives you exactly what you want from this. It's a hack and slash with the emphasis on hack and slash as you cut down hordes of enemies. It's fun to just be an unstoppable machine of destruction. With the game clocking in my playthrough around 7 hours or so, it feels just like the right amount of time to not get too tired of its repetitive level design or enemy varieties. It's just a satisfying and fun game to play where the movie just isn't. I've mentioned before that in this series with games like Kung Fu Panda where it tries to rewrite the movie and fails, or like in Despicable Me where even though it rewrites the story, it's a complementary piece to the film that either way can kind of really hinder your experience with the game. I feel like X-Men Origins Wolverine, however, not only rewrites the main story of the film, but completely replaces the need of the film, because this is a much better experience, which is why X-Men Origins Wolverine is getting the rating of play it.
Nice.